Good morning and welcome back to Miniature Monday, where today we're going to be taking a look at the next shipment from the Hachette magazine or publications or whatever they're called, Combat Patrol subscription for Warhammer 40,000. Now, before we get into it, do make sure you're subscribed to the channel. I try to put out a few videos each week, do some live streams for painting, all sorts of stuff, and I'd love for you to come along and see what we have to share. So, with that said, let's take a look at this. All right, so as always, it is 4 magazines that they send out at one time, and you get a magazine, so usually some miniatures or paint, etc. The cover price that you should be able to see here is $14.99. I do pay, I think, $18 subscription or per issue, so that I can get the premium models as well. So basically, we're going to take a look at this today, see if I think it's a good deal, things like that. And I just realized that I started recording without looking something up that I need to find real quick. So give me 1 second. We're going to take a look. So this one's also a little bit different. Instead of being like a variety pack of different miniatures, essentially you get one set of miniatures, because it's split over 3 issues of the magazine, and then we get some paint. So I just need to figure out how much these actual cost. All right, so we are looking at Wind Riders. We get 6 through the subscription, and the cost on these is normally about $60 for 3, so about $20 a piece, which is not, bad, all things considered. I mean, they are somewhat larger models. I mean, this is a frame for one jet bike, more or less in its entirety. But yeah, so you're gonna get 6 jet bikes. So total cost for jet bikes would be $120, plus the 2 paints that you're gonna get, so about $130. And then I always like to include, like an extra, say, $5-10 for the cost of the magazine, because they do still have to write that and publish it, etc. And there is still some good information there. So anyway, so we're looking at about $140 worth of stuff that you're paying about $80 for. So it is still a good deal. Not quite to that 50% off range, but pretty close. Now, zoom in on this real quick. We can see that these models originally came out in 2013. So either the Eldar are just being ignored, or no, yeah, they haven't put out any different models. So that is one thing that has been a little frustrating with the Eldar portion. In fact, I was actually talking about this with someone the other day. Games Workshop kind of does this in general, where like basically all the love goes to the Space Marines. Don't get me wrong, I like Space Marines. Big armored dudes with, big guns, all that kind of stuff. I mean, like, the Space Marines are popular for a reason. But it is something that has kind of frustrated me, because of the fact that, nobody wants to play the other armies. So you always end up playing against more Space Marines. So anyways, that's kind of my rant. Neither really here nor there. But I would have liked to have seen some newer models. Anyways, so let's take a look at what we get in our first magazine. All right, so obviously we're going to have some build instructions. This is going to work for all 3 of the issues. The instructions are pretty simple, pretty good. We then get into more painting for our Tyranids and Space Marines. This is interesting. Relayering. I really have not done this before. So, like, as I've been painting the models and wanting to get my skills upgraded, I think this is a skill that I need to learn. So it's nice that they're walking through how to do this. Obviously how to do it with some larger models. And then, again, more updates across the collection. So I do like how they do these. They give you these work in progress. Hey, this is where your models should be, by the end of this issue. I am still dramatically behind. That's what I get for taking 3 weeks off. Go figure. All right, we then have some just background information on different aspect warriors. So the Shining Spears, Warp Spiders, Howling Banshees, Striking Scorpions, Fire Dragons, Dark Reapers, Swooping Hawks, and Crimson Hunters. That is an aspect warrior that I was not aware of. Crimson Hunters fly large craft called Nightshade Interceptors that represent the pinnacle of Eldari aerial technology. So basically, they added them when they included flyers in the game. All right, we then get into the core rules of 40K. Combat Patrol Collection. All right, so this looks like it's coming straight out of the 40K rulebook, which is good. Description of the strike forces, so Strike Force Octavius and the Vardengast Swarm. And then just, all right, some images of that. All right, so still, like, they're giving a lot of Eldar background, but man, they have not gotten into much on, like, a lot of everything still seems very focused on the Space Marines and the Tyranids from the first wave. This shipment actually finishes the Eldar. So I've already got the Eldar Combat Patrol. We're about to move into the next one, and I'm still not even finished with the first two. So that's a whole different issue. All right, then we get more of these cards, different terrain cards for the maps. All right, looks like these are some War Gear cards for the Eldar. To then go with our unit cards, which, all right, so here are the Chaos unit cards. So we've got the Dark Apostle, the Legionnaires, the Havocs, and the Hellbrute. I wonder how old those models are going to be. And then we've got the... They're already falling out. That's fine. Oh, there we go. Lost it. All right. So we got the Farseer, the Defenders, the Wraith Lord, and the Wind Riders. So those are the unit cards to go with the next two combat patrols. Anyways, I do kind of like that. I do like that they're giving you little reference materials to work with. All right. So next magazine is more jet bikes. I'm not going to show those off because we already looked at the first one. So let's just start kind of consolidating these. This is probably going to end up being a little bit of a shorter video. Since basically I just need to look at the magazine. Alright. So, no build, no paint, just read, collect, and play. As you can see in the index. Hosts of the Dead. So we've got the Spirit Seer. Oh, let me get the... There we go. The Wraith Guard and the Wraith Knight. So they're Titan class. Great looking model. I don't get one out of the subscription. Some background on the Drukhari, or as I like to call them, the Dark Eldar. which is interesting because they're just giving you this information under the Eldari. And they're not actually giving you a combat patrol for that. Warzone Bastior. Again, we're going Imperium versus Tyranids. But then we get some nice maps of the galaxy. More fiction on, or more background on the Horus Heresy. Silver Templars Part 7. Wind Riders datasheet. And more core rule information. So, alright, so it looks like this shipment is a lot more about just core rules for combat patrol. So that, or not combat patrol, but just 40k in general. Alright, the third magazine of Wind Riders. So again, you get 2 more jet bikes. And now we get into the actual how to paint. So pretty standard, but they are dealing with some of that relayering technique, so that's going to be good, especially when it's on white. I still struggle with white. Alright, more Dark Eldar, Cabals, Cults, and Covens. Komarog. And more core rules. So the command phase. The combat patrol listing for the Eldar. A tutorial scenario for the jet bike. So scenario number 19. Alright, that's that magazine. Actually, yeah, speaking of the tutorial scenario 19, I had to take a break because I was literally out of the country, but I will be getting back to doing the training Thursdays where I'm going through the scenarios. So there's that. All right, then we've got magazine number 30. This puts us 1/3 of the way through because they're doing 90 issues total. We get 2 pots of paint. We've got, let me zoom in for this. Another shade, Agrax Earth Shade. So this is going to be more of like a brown tone. And then we've got a base color, Mechanicus Standard Gray. Always good to have a gray. So, as always, I did get an extra set of pots. So I've got 2 of each, which is going to be more or less enough to be able to put it in a dropper bottle like this that I much prefer over Games Workshop pots. I hate those still. The paint, I'm actually surprised. I am enjoying. I just hate the paint pots. All right. So we've got the magazine. We've got a Khorne bloodletter on the cover. So obviously we're moving on to the Chaos faction, which I'm a little surprised on because I thought there were going to be some extra models for the Eldar, but I guess not. All right, so basically doing more updates, where to put the Agrax Earthshade and get some different tones on the different colors. So I'm actually gonna like that. Like already, I can see this. Oh, this is nice. 15-minute drying time. Leave at least 15 minutes for shade paints to dry. This will vary depending on how much paints you have used. They are thinner. They're more watery. I mean, it's probably not water, but whatever. So yeah, definitely need to let your washes dry a lot longer. They do not dry as quickly as a standard acrylic paint. We then have our work in progress. More updates to our Eldar. And then we get into Harlequins. Definitely not a starter army. Definitely not one that appears in the Combat Patrol subscription. But it is fun. I do like that they are giving some extra information for the world, even if they're not including the armies in the subscription. We then have the Realm of Chaos. Not sure why they're talking about the Realm of Chaos, but then highlighting some Sisters of Battle. But here we are. We've got the 4 Gods of Chaos: Khorne, Tzeentch, Nurgle, and Slaanesh. Chaos Space Marines, Legacies of Betrayal. And we get into some of the core mission information. I do like this. They give you a little chart so you can mark, okay, who'd you play as attacker versus which defender with all the different combat patrols. So you can kind of track it. I like that they're encouraging you to take the stuff and try different things. So that's really good. Then we can talk about the movement phase. Transports. And there we go. That's it. Overall, I'm still happy with this. I like the way that this is developing. I really do. They are breaking it down. I mean, even though I'm somebody who's been around Warhammer for most of the last 30 years, you know, especially for a new player, somebody who hasn't been around with all of the fiction and all of the different editions, the different codexes, things like that, there's just an overwhelming amount of information. So I do like this magazine subscription that, just breaks it down a little bit at a time. And it's like, hey, what am I going to learn about this month? And even as somebody who's kind of coming back to it, after many years of not doing Games Workshop games, there's a lot of additional information. So it's nice for someone like me to get it broken down as well. So anyways, what did you think of this new subscription? Overall, I do think the value is still there. Like I said, about $140 worth of stuff, and about $80 is what it cost me for the month. So, honestly, not bad. I do like that they concentrated on just one faction, as opposed to the Space Marines and the Tyranids coming at the same time. But it does also feel kind of rushed that I'm already done with Eldar and we're moving on to the next one. So anyways, overall, semi-mixed, still happy. But let me know what you think. Drop it down in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. But otherwise, come back next time and we'll talk more. Like I said, Training Thursdays, where I'm going to be going through more of the rules for the scenarios that they include with the magazine. And again, all sorts of other videos. So make sure you're subscribed so that you don't miss any of it. So thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.